They say money doesn't buy happiness, but it definitely buys a Lamborghini. And apparently a front row seat to the pettiest neighborhood war I never asked for. When I moved into Maple Grove Estates, I thought I was buying peace. I wanted quiet mornings, strong coffee, and a place where I could park my dream car without drama. What I got instead was a war zone, disguised as a suburban utopia. And it all started with a teenager and an outrageous demand. It was a warm Saturday morning, the kind that makes you feel good just to be alive. Birds were chirping, the sun was hitting just right, and my Lamborghini Huracan Evo, gleaming in matte black, sat perfectly centered in the driveway like royalty on a throne. I'd spent nearly a decade building my tech startup, burning midnight oil and sacrificing everything from birthdays to vacations. This car wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol. Proof that hard work does pay off. I was polishing the hood, headphones in, vibing to some lo-fi beats, when I noticed him, lurking from across the street. At first glance, he looked like any other bored teenager. Hoodie over his head despite the sun, hands in his pockets and a swagger that didn't match his age. He walked slowly, surveying the car like a shark circles prey. I took my headphones off as he approached. "You the new guy?" he asked. "I guess so," I said. He squinted at me, then at the car. "This yours?" "Yup," he smirked. "That's a Lambo, right? Huracan?" "Correct again." He nodded, then said something I'll never forget. "Cool. I'll take it." I paused. "What?" He grinned like it was a joke, but there was no laugh behind it. "You heard me. You're new here, so I'll be nice. Give me the keys and I won't report you to the HOA." I blinked. Is this a prank? He pulled out his phone. "Nope. Karen, my mom, she runs the HOA, says cars like this ruin the community image. Loud, flashy, not neighbor-friendly, whatever that means. So you either give me the car, or we make your life here hell." Now let me pause and paint the full picture for you. This kid, who I later found out was named Aiden, stood about 5'9", maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. He looked like he had never done a day of hard work in his life. His shoes were expensive, his hoodie had a designer logo, and his smug grin could curdle milk. I'd barely been in the neighborhood for 2 weeks, and already this felt like an ambush. "You're joking, right?" I asked, still holding the microfiber towel in one hand. He nodded like he'd just negotiated world peace. "Smart choice. You got until tomorrow." And with that, he turned and walked away, like he owned the whole block. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I was furious, and oddly enough, excited. You see, I didn't move into Maple Grove Estates by accident. There was something about this place, specifically the legal situation surrounding the land. It was complicated, and I had come prepared. But I hadn't expected this. The next day, I woke up early and double-checked my paperwork. Then I walked out, opened the garage, and pulled the Lamborghini halfway down the street to wash it right in front of Aiden's house. It didn't take long. Out came Karen, the queen of the HOA. "Excuse me?" The words came sharp, shrill, and full of judgment, like someone trying to slice glass with a butter knife. I turned to see her marching across the lawn like an overcaffeinated drill sergeant. Blonde bob, sharp sunglasses, a neon pink visor that screamed control freak, and of course, the sacred HOA clipboard held like a judge's gavel. Karen. She didn't say her name, but I already knew. She had Karen energy written in bold, underlined font. "Do you think this is appropriate behavior for a Sunday morning?" she demanded, one hand on her hip. I glanced at the soapy sponge in my hand, and then at the gleaming black Lamborghini reflecting the rising sun. "I don't know, Karen. Feels pretty wholesome to me. Just a man washing his car." Her eyes narrowed. "This is not your driveway." "Actually, it's the public street," I said, casually continuing to rinse the passenger door. "Nothing in the HOA guidelines says I can't wash my car in front of a house that I don't own." Her voice dropped a few decibels. "That's my house." "Which means your driveway starts there," I said, pointing behind her. "This is the street." Karen glanced around, suddenly flustered. "And what's the problem again?" I asked. "The problem," she said through gritted teeth, "is that your vehicle is causing unnecessary attention, revving engines, shining paint, loud colors. This is a peaceful community, not a car show." I smiled. "So if it was a Prius, we wouldn't be having this conversation?" "I'm the head of the HOA," she snapped, "and I enforce the code. The community guidelines clearly state that vehicles with disruptive appearances are discouraged." "Discouraged is different from prohibited," I replied. "And I've read every word of that handbook, Karen. Nowhere does it say I can't own a luxury sports car. And if you want to try fining me for it, go ahead." Her jaw clenched. "Don't test—" He nodded like he'd just negotiated world peace. "Smart choice. You got until tomorrow." And with that, he turned and walked away like he owned the whole block. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I was furious. And oddly enough, excited. You see, I didn't move into Maple Grove Estates by accident. There was something about this place, specifically the legal situation surrounding the land. It was complicated, and I had come prepared. But I hadn't expected this. The next day, I woke up early and double-checked my paperwork. Then I walked out, opened the garage, and pulled the Lamborghini halfway down the street to wash it right in front of Aiden's house. It didn't take long. Out came Karen, the queen of the HOA. "Excuse me," the words came sharp, shrill, and full of judgment, like someone trying to slice glass with a butter knife. "What is he talking about?" I laughed. "Your son offered to not report me to the HOA if I gave him my Lamborghini. Yesterday, on this street." Karen's face flushed. "That's ridiculous." I shrugged. "Got it on security footage. Want a copy?" Aiden's grin faltered. For a long second, no one said anything. Then Karen took a breath and switched tactics. "This neighborhood has standards. I don't know how you even got approved to move in." I wiped the mirror clean and said nothing. Because here's the thing about people like Karen. They're used to being in charge. Used to having their clipboard, their rules, their HOA fees that they weaponize like knives. What they're not used to is pushback. And what none of them knew yet, they weren't just dealing with a guy who bought a house. They were dealing with the man who owned their street. After they left, Karen storming back into her house and Aiden throwing me one last dirty look, I went inside and pulled up the original property documents. Just a year earlier, I'd purchased a foreclosed land parcel at a county auction. No one else even bid on it because it was zoned oddly. Part private, part HOA managed, and part left over from an old development company that had gone bankrupt. The land included utility easements, sidewalks, and a 500-foot section of road that ran through Maple Grove Estates. That's right. I owned the road. The same road the HOA thought they controlled. The same road Karen thought gave her the right to harass me. The same road Aiden threatened to weaponize. It was one of those technicalities that people usually ignore, but I wasn't a regular buyer. I'd studied the details, hired a lawyer, and made sure my ownership was recorded with the county. And I was about to weaponize it, but not yet, not fully, because first, I wanted them to hang themselves with their own clipboard. Over the next week, I noticed subtle changes. My mailbox was mysteriously damaged one morning. A violation notice appeared taped to my front door about unauthorized vehicle visibility. A neighbor down the street, someone I hadn't even met, walked past and muttered, "Flashy show-off," under her breath. It didn't take long to figure out that Karen was turning the neighborhood against me. But I wasn't just sitting still. I added 2 more high-definition cameras to my house, one on the garage, one facing the street. I kept all HOA letters and violations in a folder labeled Evidence. And most importantly, I made a quiet visit to the county recorder's office to get something very special. An official copy of the property plat map, stamped and sealed. It showed in clear black ink that the asphalt running through Maple Grove Estates, from the entrance gate all the way to the turnaround near Karen's house, was owned by yours truly. And I was about to make that very public. The next few days felt like living in a powder keg, quiet on the surface, but ready to explode at any moment. Karen wasn't subtle anymore. She sent emails to every homeowner, warning them about the disruptive new resident with the excessive vehicle. Flyers appeared on car windshields, warning of community standards violations, with a picture of my Lamborghini in the center. Neighbors I barely knew began avoiding me, whispering behind closed doors, or glancing suspiciously as I pulled into the driveway. One afternoon, I caught Aiden lurking near my garage. I was sitting inside with the window open, casually scrolling through my phone when I saw him trying to peek inside the car. "Hey, Aiden," I called out. He jumped, nearly dropping his phone. "Just checking the tire pressure," he mumbled. I raised an eyebrow. "Sure you were." He smirked, but his bravado was starting to crack. Later that evening, the real drama started. I was sitting in my home office when I heard a loud clang outside. Rushing to the window, I saw Aiden trying to pry open my driver's side door with some sort of metal tool. My blood boiled. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher was polite, but skeptical. "Sir, do you have proof of attempted theft?" I replied, "I have security cameras recording everything." Within minutes, flashing blue and red lights cut through the quiet street. The officers arrived, and I showed them the live feed on my phone. Aiden was caught red-handed. "I let the HOA manage the neighborhood as a courtesy," I continued. "But I own the road, and that gives me rights." Karen's eyes darted between me and the map, but she said nothing. That day, I realized the entire neighborhood's power dynamics were about to change. Karen didn't leave that day. Instead, she planted herself on the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, glaring like I'd personally insulted her entire bloodline. "You can't just own the street," she said, voice low but fierce. "It's a community road. Everyone pays HOA fees for it." "True," I replied, "but owning the land underneath gives me legal rights that override most HOA rules. At least, that's what my lawyer says." Karen scoffed. "You think this little piece of paper gives you power over the entire neighborhood?" I smiled. Not just power. Protection. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down and her face shifted. It was a text from Aiden, terse and frantic. "Mom, he's going to make a public announcement." Karen's composure cracked for a moment before she threw me a final glare and retreated. That evening, I drafted a simple but powerful email. Subject: Important notice. Property ownership and community rights. To every homeowner in Maple Grove Estates, I want to clarify a few things about our neighborhood and recent disputes. I am the registered owner of the section of road running through our community as confirmed by county records. This means I have legal rights concerning the maintenance, use, and access of this road. I am committed to keeping Maple Grove Estates a safe and welcoming place. However, I will not tolerate threats, intimidation, or illegal actions from anyone, including the HOA or its representatives. If you have any questions or concerns, I encourage open and respectful dialogue. Let's work together to resolve conflicts peacefully and fairly. Best, your name. Within hours, replies flooded in. Some supportive, many skeptical. For the first time, Karen's authority was openly challenged, and the neighborhood saw it. The room stayed silent for what felt like an eternity. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the whisper of pages as I carefully unfolded the property plat map, laying it flat on the podium. Karen's jaw twitched. She stepped forward, attempting to snatch the document from my hands. "Give that back. That's private property," she hissed. "Actually," I said firmly, "it's public record. And it proves that the HOA does not own the street, or at least not the portion I purchased, which means I have rights, and I intend to exercise them." A few neighbors leaned forward, squinting at the map. One older man raised his hand hesitantly. "So, you own the street, like the road we all drive on?" "Yes," I replied, "which also means I have the authority to decide who can use it, how it's maintained, and yes, even who can park on it." Gasps and murmurs erupted. Karen looked around, trying to gather support, but it was clear many neighbors were uneasy. Some whispered about legal battles, others about reconsidering their allegiance to the HOA. At that moment, Aiden stormed into the room, face red with fury. "You're lying. This is my neighborhood. My mom runs the HOA. You're not taking this street from us." I stood, locking eyes with him. "I don't want a war, Aiden," I said calmly. "But if you keep threatening me or trying to steal my car, I will defend myself, legally and otherwise." He sneered. "Good luck with that." Suddenly, the door burst open, and 2 sheriff deputies entered. "We received reports of trespassing and threats against the resident here," one said. The room froze. Karen's eyes widened. One deputy turned to me. "Sir, we understand you have the right to the property, but there have been complaints from the neighborhood. We're here to ensure everyone stays safe." I nodded. "I respect that. I just want this resolved fairly." Karen shot me a look that promised this was far from over. As the meeting adjourned, I walked outside to my Lamborghini, the setting sun casting long shadows on the asphalt. The street was quiet. But I knew the storm had only just begun. Because owning the street was only the first move in a high-stakes game, one that would test everything I had fought for. And this neighborhood? They hadn't seen anything yet.